Welcome, welcome.
Cool, go ahead to it.
Welcome, welcome. Lawful greetings, Kimar. Welcome, welcome. May I tell you, I should have taken a nap. TikTok police, lawful, welcome. Yeah. The show has to go on, right? Show has to go on. You see what I say? You say it, you know, and not me. I can't toot my own hand. Is it? You know, so we need to get something to drink. Hey, as so much class we gone. We're at 19. So it seems that the early birds are on the live, you know, say the class that we had today is now added and is now live. See? That is it. That is it. That is it. Alright, so alright. I think we're going to go there. We now have the updated draft. I'm gonna make sure we upload it. Greetings, Sabak. Lawful. Welcome. Sobek. Keep on saying Sabak. Sobek. Although a Sabak you really put, but welcome, welcome. Alright, so for our draft, we're gonna update that. You know what? I'm gonna keep the Word version available. That shouldn't be a problem. Alright, so now that we have that, oh, there was one thing I wanted to make sure I remember. So I'm gonna just pull it up so that when I have to remember to look for. So you guys can, oh crap. I think that is going to be messing with the music. Alright, we can get back to that. So let's close this out for now. And alright. What time now? Alright, 4 after. We're about to get started. Gonna put in some mid-evening oil. Is it? Welcome, welcome everyone. Let me see if that one will come up. Or just my luck. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna pause that for a minute. Alright, so we got that up and running. We're gonna get to the website. Where is it? Oh. Lawful evening, everybody. I hope you are all having a great weekend. Today is April 25th, 2026. You know, I don't think I have updated the website with the last drafting session, but all will be updated soon. Investment, lawful, welcome. Today we're going to continue our constitutional draft, and we are going to go over some more of the provisions and changes that were made. And I know there are some people who may be new and some people who may still want to see how we get to the documents, right? So remote tours, lawful, welcome. Yeah, so we're going to continue our constitutional drafting. We're going to head back to the website and we're going to resume. Now, there are, of course, other matters that we're going to talk about at the end. But we first are going to have to go over the changes that were made to the constitutional draft. We're going to go over some of the suggestions. Nature lover, lawful, welcome. And we're going to talk about some other matters. Here, one of the students is talking about class. They know class is always exciting, right? Lots and lots of interesting details, right? But again, it's only for those who are ready to proceed to the next level. What I teach here is nothing close to what we go over in class, right? So we can't discuss any of that detail here on the live. But if you do want to become a signatory and you want to come to class, then here is how you do it. It is already on my profile, but I'm going to show you again how you become a signatory, right? So here we have the Voice of Jamaica website. Again, the website is voiceofjamaica.com, right? And when you get to the site, it will look like this. For those who want to become a signatory, right, there is a link in the menu that says signatories. So if you're on a phone, you have to click on the three dots on the top left or top right, and you will see signatories in the menu. If you click on that, you will come across some information here, and you will have the form that you can fill out to become a signatory. Once you fill out this form and you submit it, then you just have to watch your email for the rest of the directives in order to become a signatory, right? Now, the form was a little bit down before. We were having some issues with the previous coding of the form, so that has been corrected. So if you're trying to join before and you're getting errors, then you can go ahead and try again. It should be now fixed, okay? Now, let us move on to other matters. So we have updated the constitutional draft. So if we go back to the home page, go to home here, and the first post, it looks like this. The first post says new constitution, right? This is where we're going, new constitution. And here we have the PDF edition, right? If you want to make a suggestion, you just scroll down a little bit and you can make a suggestion here. Or if you want to see what others have submitted so far, this is what has been submitted thus far, right? You can keep going down. Lots of submissions. Excuse me. So let us proceed to our constitutional draft PDF edition, right? So our draft is currently at 238 pages. All right, and again, we want to make it readable and big enough so that people don't have to be zooming in to read a simple paragraph. All right, and we want to also include everything. The age-old question, why is Jamaica spelled like this? The reason why we use this spelling is because we don't want to infringe on the current copyright. Body can't tell us to stop using this, okay? So that is the reason why we are using this spelling of the name, okay? The table of contents has been updated, so now all sections are now directly identifiable within the draft. So the page numbers will match the section of the document, and the title, A means article, right? So article 1, article 1A, article 2, 3, 4, 4A, etc., etc. And you know, you go down and down. So as you can see, the table of contents has been expanding. We have been adding more sections to encompass everything that we need in law, right? Okay. So here in the words, meanings, and interpretation, we added some more terms, like what does A1, A1A, A4A, etc. mean? And here is the explanation, right? There are other terms in here, such as accused and artificial entity, etc. Almost all the important terms are defined, right? Coercion, that wasn't there before. This is a new term that was added, right? And it explains what coercion is. The word means the act or practice of forcing a person to act against their will by making threats, intimidation, or physical force, violating a person's natural right to freedom of the person. Coercion involves manipulating a victim into unwanted action, such as signing contracts, committing crimes, admitting to proposed acts, or submitting to unwanted acts by leveraging fears of violence or negative consequences, right? So all the relevant terms here, especially in a legal context, has been defined and reduced to plain English, because we are abolishing legalese. We should not have legalese as a language in our court system, right? Everyone understands plain common English, so that is what it should be. Right? So anyways, as you can see, we have several pages of definitions that you can go through and go over. Have our preamble. All right, so let's get to some of the additions that we made. So section, for example, section 4A, right? Section 4A, so 2, 3, 4, section 4A, enforcement of judgments and limits on state, right? So this is one of the articles that was added later in conjunction with the criminal law and public order. So this is almost like an integrated subsection. Excuse me. So, you know what? Give me a second. Let me get something to drink because I don't want to have dry throat while I go through this document. I'll be right back. Okay. So, we have the purpose of the enforcement of judgments and limits on state force. This article establishes the lawful execution of court judgments and strictly limits the use of force by the state. Again, why do we want to impose some of these things? It's because we know, we have the experience now to say that we don't. Let me get rid of Telegram so we don't get interrupted over here. Right, we have the experience today to show that we don't want our law enforcement to have unlimited power, right? It must be limited. Is there a part in the Constitution that address how judges come to their decisions in court? Yes, there is. That is where you have there is a judicial code of conduct, number one. There is the section on the courts, and there's an enforcement. This part is talking about enforcement of judgments, right? But there is also the section on the courts and how the courts are supposed to function. We're going to go over that after we're finished with this part, because this is important. And I want to go over this because previously, you know, we have so much in this document to go over. I don't want to over exasperate, you know, what needs to go over, but these are important points. And this is why I say that for those who, you know, you see this as a very big document, you just look at the table of contents and you find the section that best suits what you would like to see in a new constitution, and then you just read that section. And that way, if you'd like to make a suggestion, it would be something relevant to your interests and not just a broad, you know, hey, maybe I want to do this, maybe I want to put that, right? So here, this section is limiting the use of force by the state or by law enforcement, right? Enforcement shall be based only on law, valid judgment, and verified authority. So right now, you know, you can get locked up for anything, right? You don't have to have any verification. You don't have to have any validation. You don't have to have any evidence. You know, them can say, oh, we'll lock you up and then we'll let you out. And it just slides, right? We need to put a stop to that. So this is why this section is here. Authority to enforce. Only designated enforcement officers certified under this constitution may execute court orders, right? This is plain and simple and is pretty common, right? No person shall enforce a judgment without a valid court order, a recorded mandate of authority, right? You need to have one of these. Any enforcement action without lawful authority is void. It happened to me at Ferry Police. Yeah, you know, it has to stop. You can't just lock up people just because you feel like say them disrespect you or whatever. Validity of orders, right? And an order is enforceable only if it is issued by a court of lawful jurisdiction. You know, we haven't talked about jurisdiction a lot. I think we are gonna have to put a section in there defining jurisdiction, what it means, where it applies, who it applies to, what it applies to, you know, those kind of things. So that definitely is going to have to be a possible section in the Constitution. Jurisdiction. You know, order is only enforceable if it is recorded in the public record, official public record, and states the legal basis, scope, and limits of enforcement, right? So you can't just have a court directive or a court order or a subpoena or a search warrant. It has to be very specific in scope and limits. Right? That's to say, what you can do and anything else is forbidden. Right? So you only go out to do specific things. Orders lacking these elements shall not be executed, right? Section 4, scope of enforcement. Enforcement shall be limited strictly to what is stated in the order, right? Sometimes we have instances where extrajudicial enforcement is happening, where let's say you have a search warrant to go search a premises for X. Now, when them find X, or if they don't find anything where they were supposed to search, then they keep on searching and digging. On top of that, sometimes they go search up people place and then mash up things, then leave it raga raga. Those things have to stop, right? If you go there and you're searching for whatever, you at least put things back in their place. It don't have to be perfect, but you don't leave people place raga raga, right? No officer shall expand the scope of an order or act beyond its stated limits. Any excess action is unlawful and void. And anything that is unlawful or anything that is you'd consider extra, that was not there or was not authorized, then that is directly appealable in the court, or something that you can go back to the court and plead for. And especially with how we've removed the barrier of entry to the court, right? Which is usually, payment. In order to file a claim in the court, you typically, nowadays, you have to go and pay. If you can't pay, or if you don't have the money to pay, they have something called an indigency, or someone who is considered a pauper, right? If you make below a certain amount, they might allow you to proceed without paying, but you literally have to be at the poverty level, right? Exactly, just like the people who fix pipe. Yeah, man, sometimes they dig up the roadside and just do what them a do and gone. Them no fix it back. Like, those things should not stand, right? 6, proportional use of force. Force shall be used only where necessary to execute a lawful order. The level of force must be minimal, proportionate to the resistance encountered, right? So you can't have someone who is unarmed, and in many cases they are not trying to violate the constable, and then they end up getting beat and kick and box on them something. Like, that is not necessary, right? So if you're going to use force, it has to be to stop things from escalating and de-escalate further, right? Lethal force is prohibited except where strictly necessary to prevent immediate loss of life. Now, again, these things have to be very specific, because if we don't list these things, it is going to be used as an excuse later. So we're not saying they're not doing a good job enough, but in the cases where we see abuse, we have to have a remedy, right? Prohibited conduct. Enforcement officers shall not use excessive or punitive force, act for personal, political, or financial interest, and shall not execute an order known to be unlawful, right? Any such act shall result in personal liability, right? Because when you are acting outside of the authority given to you by the state, you are no longer shielded. If you're not acting in your lawful capacity, you're acting in your personal capacity, and you are now personally liable for any violations that occur or any damage that is encountered. All right, I can't go call the name there, but Cho say, when will this be in effect? This will be in effect after it is passed by the people. Okay, after it is accepted and assented to by the people, then it will go into effect. Protection of persons and property. Enforcement shall minimize harm to persons and property. Unnecessary damage or injury during enforcement is prohibited. Any damage caused beyond lawful necessity shall require compensation. Right? And again, this basically a come out of freedom pocket if you are not enforcing a lawful order in a lawful way. Right? Execution of civil judgment. Civil enforcement may include recovery of property, restitution, lawful seizure as ordered. Right? So in the case of something civil, where you're trying to recover money or recover, restitution, these are the three options. Right? You recover property, you get restitution, or lawful seizure of whatever property. No seizure shall occur without a specific identification of the property and documented authority. Right? Execution of criminal judgments. Criminal enforcement shall include lawful detention, supervision, and execution of sentence. Right? So you can't just say detention, and that is how the system has been circumvented by generic terms. So it has to be a lawful detention, not just go detain somebody. Right? It has to be lawful. It has to be supervised. You cannot just have a one-off person that run go do something. And it has to be in relation to the execution of a sentence. Right? One of these three. No person shall be detained. Kimar, yeah man, big up yourself, lawful. No person shall be detained except under a valid judgment or a lawful warrant. Right? So, and this is in relation to criminal enforcement, not necessarily if a crime is witnessed. Right? This is not a political party. We are not over here doing anything political at the moment. Record of enforcement. Every enforcement action shall be recorded in full, documented with time, place, and officers involved. Right? Records shall be preserved, be accessible for review. Unrecorded enforcement actions are void. You see, many times we hear about situations where you have enforcement actions going on as a directive, and you have no warrant, you have no documentation to show exactly what it is you are doing in a specific place, why it is that you are there, why you are apprehending individuals. You only hear that they are on an operation. Recently, the Minister of National Security said every operation is supervised, right? Every operation is supervised. So it is not something where police just get up and run going in one place, right? They get the directive to go and execute on their directives. And again, we are not condemning any of that. What we are saying is, if you are going out there to execute on a directive, it should be lawful. It should be documented. It should be able to have a review. Now, one of the reasons why it is said that INDECOM cannot or does not investigate many of these things is because of the lack of documentation, the lack of evidence. If there is no evidence to incriminate someone, you can prosecute all you want. They are not going to be able to be prosecuted. Right? You can bring a claim on a case and you can arrest them and all that stuff, but at the end, if you don't have enough evidence to prove what you are saying, then that individual cannot be held accountable. And again, we don't have anything in law to stop them from going out there on the directive of the commissioner. Right? We don't have any body cams, we don't have any street cams, we don't have any vehicle cameras, we don't have anything. So again, they might be doing a good job, they might not be doing a good job. At this point, we don't know because we don't have the data to show. We don't have the video evidence to show. We don't have nothing. Right? So if we don't put these things in law, then everything is left to the discretion of the public officials, which is what we don't want. We want everybody to know exactly what the process is and what the process should be to get things done. Damien, lawful, greetings, welcome. Accountability. Enforcement officers are personally accountable for unlawful acts, right? So this way, it is a direct deterrent to go out there and doing anything unlawful. And we already, in this constitution, we already put in there that it is mandatory to wear body cameras. It is mandatory to have all public interactions, regardless of the nature of it. It has to be documented. If there's no documentation and there's a fatality, you literally are going to face the same penalty as a criminal, right? It's that simple. We cannot have people just going out there following directives and not being held accountable. And again, if we have someone making a directive and that directive is to go out there and to take someone else's life without due process, then you also have to face consequences as well. Right? Justin, lawful, welcome. I don't think it is fair that someone can make a directive and say, all right, go out there and go do these X, Y, and Z. It turns out to be unlawful, but only the person executing that directive gets held accountable. No, it has to come from the source. The source all the way down to the end of the stick. Everyone has to be held accountable for their actions. That is what you would call an actual society. What we have now is almost like an oligarchy, where you have some people being held to the letter of the law and others not being held to the letter of the law. That is not society. It is literally slavery. Right, so enforcement officers are personally held accountable for unlawful acts. Right? We only have private camera catching them in the unlawful, and then the owner is in fear. Right, and that should not be the case. Violations include exceeding authority, misuse of force, execution of invalid orders. Violations shall result in 1. Removal from office, civil liability, and criminal liability where applicable. Right to challenge enforcement. Any person subject to enforcement may challenge the validity of the order and the manner of execution. Right? So if you feel like, say, someone abused them power while trying to so-called execute a lawful order, right? You just pull the record. You pull the record and you challenge it. Courts shall provide immediate review where enforcement is disputed. And as we said, if we have a national record system, we don't need 5 months of discovery. A matter of fact, we don't need past 30 days. Once we have a contest to a matter, the public records database should be the source of any discovery of information or data. We should not need to be going asking here, asking there. Everybody should have access to the public records database. This is not hard. We are in the age of technology. As a matter of fact, we have actually passed the age of basic technology. So we should not need to be going out there asking agency for information. It should just be readily available. Right? Limitation on state force. The state shall not use force except to enforce lawful orders or to prevent immediate harm. All force must be lawful, necessary, and proportionate. Force used outside these limits is unlawful. Simple. Suspension of enforcement. Enforcement shall be suspended where a credible challenge to legality exists. Continued action would cause irreparable harm. Right? Suspension shall remain until lawful review is completed. So if we have a situation where, for for example, someone is trying to execute a warrant, like a bench warrant, and it is found out that that someone abused their authority, if a report is made to whatever agency or to the court, that enforcement is immediately suspended, right? We cannot have people going after people with unnecessary force, right? Or public servants going after people with unnecessary force. So that would put a freeze on any enforcement. We need a new constitution and we need it now. But before that can happen, we need new leaders. Well, we're going to talk about all of that shortly. Principle: enforcement of law in Jamaica shall ensure lawful authority, minimal force, accountability of officers, protection of persons and property, and strict adherence to recorded orders. Do you agree? I 100% agree, but at the same time, it sounds like you are new to the conversation. The structure of government outlined in this document is actually in furtherance of that goal. We are not trying to change what is already there. What we are doing here is we are building something completely new, right? It is not a complete democracy. It's not a complete socialism. It's not a complete anything. It is taking the best aspects of different areas of governance and putting them together into something where we can actually have a balanced scale. Right? So let us go back up here. So we were gonna talk about the courts, right? Housing, government process voting, disaster, labor, public surveillance, record keeping, contracts, commerce, force of law, system of law. I know we have the courts here. We have family court, code of judicial conduct, criminal procedure, civil procedure. I think it was system of justice and law. I think there was a court section. Let's see, court. There should have been a section on court. So I think it's system of law. That's what it's under. So we have system of law, page 23, right? Let's go to page 23. In the document, page 23. System of law, right? Justice in Jamaica shall be open, equal, and accessible to all persons. Courts exist solely to resolve disputes, determine facts, apply the law as written, and enforce lawful outcomes. Access to the courts shall not be denied based on financial condition or social status. No fees shall be required to initiate or defend any civil or criminal matter, right? So we have removed the fee structure of the courts. And you know, when we take a look at something like this, right, this is where people typically get stuck, right? Because you have to be paying all these exorbitant fees, you know, for whatever it is, maybe application fee, this a fee, that the fee, attorney fee, etc. That kind of burden deters people from bringing their matter to the courts. And there is no remedy outside of the courts for many legal matters, right? The exclusive court structure. The courts of Jamaica shall consist only of the apex court. This was previously the Supreme Court, right? So we would change that name to the apex court, which pretty much means the same thing, but it would be almost like the apex of a mountain, the very top. We would not have a privy council. This would be our final court of authority. 2 national courts of appeal, right? So we would have 2 courts of appeal in basically the 2, or I can say, reachable from 2 parts of the island. So if you're on the west side, you can get to the court reasonably close. And if you're on the east side, you would still be able to get to one of the other courts reasonably close, right? Then you have the parish criminal courts and you have the parish civil and equity courts, right? So this would be our new court structure, right? Now, there are others who have asked, what happened to the traffic court then? Or the traffic court turned into the parish court? We would eliminate these traffic laws. I think it is ridiculous. Now again, if the people want that, we can definitely have that suggestion added and put provisions in there. But actually, we are going to have that section, but it would only be for commercial purposes. Personal so-called traffic regulation makes no sense because it is all rooted in criminal law or criminal enforcement, right? Again, we would have harsher penalties, but it would only be in relation to commercial activity, right? If we're going to charge, a so-called licensing fee, many of these things that people are getting ticketed for is because of lack of infrastructure, number one. Not only are the roads bad, not only are the places that people drop off and pick up very bad, we also have arbitrary enforcement. We currently have a system where the police are supposed to be regulating traffic and traffic flow, but instead they are impeding traffic flow. When the police comes out, traffic slows down. When the police goes away, traffic flows better. And, it is one of those situations where we can see the opposite intent of the law actually happening. It is just that, again, people are not bringing these matters to the attention of the courts. So, while we don't have a traffic code or a traffic law inside of the Constitution just yet, we are going to include it, but only for commercial purposes, right? Because the reason for the traffic code in the first place is to prevent plunder. It was never supposed to be something where you're having what is happening today, like a random stop and search, deterring you and stopping, the regular man and woman from going about their business without hinder, right? So, and again, the enforcement of the traffic laws as criminal is absolutely ridiculous. If you have a licensing issue, right, where we have individuals who, let's say, they fail to renew their license or fail to renew their road license or whatever it may be, it should simply be an administrative fee, right? When the time comes back around, you simply are not able to have a new license until you pay your arrears. It should be that simple. It shouldn't be something where you end up in court having to fight for your life, where if you can't pay, you end up in jail. So, anyways, no additional courts shall exist unless established by constitutional amendment. And here we have the description of the different courts. For example, the apex court is the final authority on all matters of law. The apex court shall interpret this constitution, resolve dispute between government structures, review appellate decisions, and determine constitutional questions. Right? Its decisions shall be final and binding. So once you get a Supreme Court ruling, you cannot appeal it. Right? That's a final decision. If it reaches that far. Courts of appeal, you have two courts of appeal. You have the criminal court of appeal and you have the civil and equity court of appeal, right? And here we have the appeal shall be limited to errors of law, procedural violation, and insufficiency of evidence. No appeal shall retry facts unless a legal defect is proven, right? This is largely similar to what we have today. However, here we have clearly defined limits. Parish courts is that each parish shall maintain a criminal court and a civil and an equity court. Right? So the civil and equity court are typically merged because they are civil, both civil in nature. You just have one division dealing with just plain civil matters, and you have another division within the court that deals with equity matters. Parish courts shall serve as courts of first instance, meaning this is where you go first. Unless you have a constitutional matter, your actual civil or criminal case would start at the parish court. Right? Parish criminal courts shall determine guilt or innocence and apply lawful sentencing. Parish civil and equity courts shall resolve disputes involving property, contract, and obligations and grant lawful remedies. Right? Open justice and record. All court proceedings shall be public. Every proceeding shall be recorded by audio, video, and a written transcript. So there will be no question about what was said or done in court. Records shall be permanent, be publicly accessible, and be preserved without alteration. And we talked about this before with our the National Records Database, right? Where even if we have errors in the record, it is not deleted, it is not modified. You create the replacing record or the current record, and you would now have two records. So it is clear what was there before and what the new record is, right? We would not have any record being deleted. So if we have 10 amendments to something, we will have 10 versions of the same document pretty much, right? So that way we will not have inadvertent deletions and inadvertent this, inadvertent that. We would have a complete and reliable and credible record system. Any unrecorded proceeding shall have no legal effect, right? You can't have somebody's case going along and nobody can see what was said and what was done, right? Joel Diamond say, you do not know how court operates. That's on paper. What actually happened is different. Welcome, Joel, to the live. I hope you take the time to go and actually read through the document, what we're going over, so that way you have a better comprehension of what exactly we're doing over here. Welcome, welcome. Section 7, limited privacy. In cases involving minors or sensitive family matters, identifying details may be restricted. Proceedings remain recorded and reviewable, right? So just because it is a sensitive case, that does not mean that there is no recording or record, right? Have to have a full record of all cases. Privacy shall not eliminate accountability, right? So you can't hide back on nothing. Section 8, the right to representation. Any person may represent themselves. Any person may appoint assistants of their choosing. Legal representation shall not be restricted to licensed professionals, right? And we've all heard, well, I'm not going to say we all, but many people have reported the courts or the judges telling them, don't come back to my court without an attorney, right? So that's how it go. So here we are removing that barrier. If you choose to represent your case, you should have that right. The court cannot tell you how to try or how to present your case to the court. Even if you are severely legally disabled, that should not prevent the court from ruling on the facts of the case and the law of the case, right? In criminal matters, assistance shall be made available upon request. So if someone is being charged with a crime and either they choose not to get an attorney or they would like the state to provide an attorney, they can also have that assistance. Now, let us talk about why are we even going over such matters, right? Regarding assistance of counsel and eliminating the court fees and things like that. Why would we even want to go down that road, right? So let us, where is this? 1 second. Let's get this out of the way. So let's talk about this. So first things first. The courts are supposed to be public because they were built and they are maintained with tax dollars. The money that pays the employees of the court and the judges come from the consolidated fund, right? It comes from the treasury of Jamaica. And that is where our tax dollars go. So obviously we are paying these people. So if we are the employers, we are the ones paying for the salaries and the fees and all these things, why are we still being charged to lodge a case, to prosecute a case, and also still have to get attorneys? Because the organization that is called legal aid or public assistance, right? We are already paying for that. Our tax dollars already pay the salaries of these individuals. So it is almost nonsensical that we would go out there and get independent legal representation and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to represent our cases. And to my comprehension from the reports of others who have even tried to get legal aid, sometimes they tell you that it is best you try to get an attorney. Sometimes they tell you, well, we can't handle this kind of case. All kind of excuses. No, not everybody, you know. There are a few people that have let me know that they were successful in obtaining, you know, legal aid. But in some cases, they were turned away. I don't think this shouldn't even be possible. It shouldn't even be possible. Again, they can't tell me that. Well, if they tell me that, what do I say to that? Again, I'm just saying what some people have said. Some got through and some have not. I don't know the full details of it. But if that is the case, that should not be true. And I will say this again. If we as a public, as a population, if we are already paying for these institutions to represent us as an option, they should be in every court in Jamaica. Signs should be up everywhere. We should all know that if we are charged with a crime, we can rely upon the publicly available assistance of counsel. What happens to the lawyer who do not want to take up the case? I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about there. It's your right to legal aid. I know it is a right to legal aid. Right? See somebody in the comments saying, I was told to pay legal aid $20,000 for them to represent me in traffic case by a senior clerk. Not under the political parties. Now, again, I don't have the data, so I cannot say for sure what people have said and what people have actually done. But the reports that I get is that some people are actually turned away. Lawyers don't want to take up legal aid work. All right, let me bring it up. We have K Art Beats. Bringing you up. Let us have a discussion about that. K Art Beats is offline. All right, look like he or she doesn't want to come up. The fact is this. We are paying for these institutions to have council representatives available. Let's see if this connection works. Okay, Art Beats.
Yeah, good night.
Powerful evening. Welcome.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that sometimes, or if you go to the legal aid board and you need a legal aid lawyer, they will call the lawyers and ask them if they're willing to take up this case or if they have any time, like any extra space where they can fit in a legal aid client. Now, some of the lawyers, them just don't want to do them matters, them prefer to paid matters, right? So it's not a case where they tell you that you can't get a legal aid lawyer. You can get one, but the lawyers them shy away from that because it's not an upfront money thing,
Okay.
right? So that's what I'm saying.
So hold on. Let
So
us
they
break.
cannot. So no one can tell you that you're not gonna get legal representative through legal aid counsel or in court. If you don't have a lawyer, the judge, they will appoint one right at the time. Right while you're in the court, they'll just ask a lawyer to take up the case. Right? The lawyer will take it, the lawyer will take the case, but that is if they're gonna do any work on the case. They'll take it because the judge ordered them to take it then.
Okay, all right,
So that's how it goes.
right. Let's not go off on a tangent. Let's talk about legal aid specifically.
Yeah.
Are you saying that they don't have any attorneys on hand, that they just call up some attorneys and see if they would take on the case pro bono?
Right. If you go to the legal aid
Right.
counsel,
Right.
it is an office. When you go there, right, they have a list of every lawyers in the parish. And they will call the lawyers because they have the number. Call them and say, so and such, can you take up this matter now? And give them a little synopsis, like what's the person charged for. If they can manage it, they will accept it. Right? But many of them shy away from it because it's not a paid thing where they get money up front. So it is the lawyers, them are the ones who doesn't really want to take the case. But sometimes it is thrown at them where they have to just take it because if the judge appoint you, because if you're in court, for instance, you're in court and you don't have a lawyer, the judge willing to appoint one of them that is in the court. No.
If it is a serious criminal matter.
Well, I'm talking about criminal matter.
Right, but serious criminal matter. They're not going to do it for traffic cases. I know that.
Well, to be honest, I don't really know about the traffic part, but criminal matter,
right,
that is how it goes.
Right, so
I've been in court several times. That's why I can say this.
Yeah, man. But my thing is this, right? That don't make any sense.
What don't make any sense?
If what you describe is truly what legal aid is all about in Jamaica, it don't make no sense.
Well, you know, it work, the system work that way. That is the way it work. It don't really have to make sense to a lot of person. It might not make any sense, but this is how the system works.
Right. No. Procedurally, what they are doing, it may work in some cases. But let's say someone has a serious case going on and they're looking for assistance, then contact legal aid and legal aid say, let us call you back. By the time them call you back, well, we don't have anyone available for that, or we don't have any attorney who can take on that case. Right?
Well, yeah. Well, clearly they don't have any lawyer who have any space now that can take it up.
Right. So it's almost like they are a middleman.
They're not denying you the right now, It's just that the lawyers, them who they have in the parish, they are not accepting the case.
I get it.
They are, but you see, all they need to do now is just be in court, say to the judge, I cannot afford a lawyer. I'm telling you, the judge will appoint one of them that is sitting in the court now to take up the matter. And they
But
have to.
I get you, and I am not disputing that. I am agreeing with you. But what I am saying is, all right, let me give you an example of why I say it doesn't make sense. If we have someone who have a criminal matter, first things first, you don't, if they are holding you, like in a holding cell or whatever, right? And you are being charged with some serious criminal matter.
Right.
Now, you don't have the time to be doing all of this research and all of that, right? So if you don't say to the judge, well, I don't have an attorney, but yes, I want counsel to, if you don't know to say that in some case, again, this is not a guaranteed thing. You have to say it to the judge in many cases.
Well, you don't have to say it to the judge. If you turn up in court, the judge will ask, where is a lawyer?
Right.
Right?
And they say you don't
and
have
if you
one.
say to the judge, cannot afford a lawyer now, she will appoint one to you. That's how it goes. So even if you do not know how the process go, but you are charged and you have a court date, you will be taken to court, and at that moment the judge will definitely find out if you have a lawyer or not. And she's gonna ask you, can you afford a lawyer? If you tell her yes, she say okay, then she will just remand you until the next date where you must come with a lawyer. So if you can't afford one, you just say it to her and she appoint one of them.
Okay.
So that's how it goes. That's how the system works. You understand? But you have the right to an attorney. Right? So no one can deny that. The system, even though the system mess up certain way, they won't deny you that right. Because you will get a lawyer, but that is if the lawyer gonna do anything for you. The lawyer is just gonna appear now on the record as a lawyer because the judge appoint them. Right? But they must show up still, but based on the system work, because he's a lawyer that was appointed by the court.
Right.
Sometimes the lawyer might not even show up. The lawyer might not even communicate with you.
Right.
Right? So that is the reason why a lot of persons don't really go that route. But if you really cannot afford a lawyer, that is the best option you have, or the only other option, or represent yourself.
Now, the reason why I say again, that is not a good way to do things. Right? Let's say the police lock you up and charge you.
Yeah.
Right? And you are wait to see a judge. Or let's say them hold you.
Once you are charged, they will give you a court date.
I get that, but hold on now. Hold on, I'm making a point here. Hold on. I am saying, if you, let's say you get locked up by the police and you're in holding, they're not charge you yet. Them just a hold you because them a claim say them a do investigation or whatever.
Right.
You don't have an attorney.
Right.
So now you are being held for 2, 3, 4 weeks, sometimes even a month.
All right.
Right?
Explain how that part they're going on. You have like whether a sergeant or an inspector, they are in charge of the cell block, right? Every morning or every other morning, that person in charge come around the cell block and check. And you have a card there so they will know who is charged and who is not, right? The inspector will try to investigate and find out if you have a lawyer, when is a court date, and they will make contact with the investigating officer to find out why is this man here without being charged. And if you are not, if you can't be just there sitting down in lockup.
Really?
Chances are, if the investigating officer not doing anything, the person in charge of the lockup might have to release you. Just let you go, because the person is sitting here extended time and not being charged. And remember, the inspector make contact with the person who is investigating and say, this man they here too long, you need to charge him and release him.
All
So
right.
that one of the duty of the inspector to check on the persons in lockup.
All right. So hold on now. First thing, none of this is in law. None of these processes that we are talking about, it is not encoded in law. It is a process that either the court or the police them a follow for them internal process.
Right, yeah.
Right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, I personally know somebody who their son was locked up for almost 3 weeks before a charge was laid. So the son was in the lockup.
Right.
And if that is happening where they are walking around checking, that is a great injustice. We are going, and because you don't have nobody to complain to, you don't have the money for an attorney, you don't have an attorney, you don't have nobody on standby if you say, okay, Ray, blah, blah, blah. You now become...
You are going, yeah, right. You are going to end up just or the person in charge now come check on you and you explain to them, say this is what happened. Such and such police take me up, have me in here, me no charge. Me dey here from X time, me dey here weeks now without charge. So you want to know what happened. So you as a person who being locked up, you have to still follow it up. Because if you sit down in there, you might just sit down in there for months.
And that is why we're talking about these things, because even though the processes are there that they come up with, because it is not in law, it is just something where them say, all right, we are going to just follow that process here. Because really and truly, the Bail Act and the Constabulary Force Act says what the police is supposed to do. But in many cases that were reported to me, them not follow that. Yeah. That is not being followed. By the time somebody get to court, 6 months pass already.
Protocol is being breached.
Huh?
I'm saying sometimes the protocol is being breached because it's kind of still come down to the person who is in lockup.
No, because even hold on,
them just have treated away there.
But hold on,
because nobody now call and check up on you. Nothing, you're just there. Some man jog him foot. You look like you don't have no representative. You need to have family a check up on you. So nobody now step on things for you then. Not even the police are carry there. I'm really no business.
Right.
It look like nobody business with you. So the system actually treated away there if them realize say I saw your thing said.
Well,
right? But you see if people are follow up your thing now, it will cause them for act. Right?
No, well, that has not been many people's experiences. But I get what you're saying, That is what I'm really supposed to do. At least have some conscience and at least follow up and make sure them really do the right thing. And make sure say if somebody is not charged, then find out why. If them can't charge them, just let them go, right? But that is definitely not a protocol.
That's why you can't tell them go treat.
Yeah, but you might go treat at a specific location, Or you might go to a specific...
Every jail is not the same. It's not really right. At the same, like you're there in a jail now, but every jail don't operate the same way. Some stricter than some.
And that is the problem.
Some jail, the police, them they actually care about the welfare of the prisoners. Some jail, the police, them they give a damn boy.
Right.
Right? Yes, so you go. It depends which jail you go. Some jail not keep up with the slackness. Some jail, if a police carrier come there, him know him have to follow up with your crime and go get a call. Because when them put you in the lockup, them sign to it with them name and everything. So you will carry the man come there, you can't hide your phone number, everything. You depend on card. So them can just take it up and call the police and say, wow, man, they are too long, What you do?
So let me ask you a question. How do you feel we could solve this problem?
Well, I don't really know still. I don't know what could have solved it still, but the system slack still, But,
no, man,
right,
you must can't think about something.
Them have to put like outside people for work with the lockup where them actually dead here differently like civilian where really remandees are persons lock up that are for them duty for always keep up. So it mean to say them are gonna make outside calls for them too. Cause you don't really have access to call when you're there in a lockup. It's a really luck. You understand? Right. So they need people like that where a man lock up can say, alright, call my girlfriend or my brother or some relative and you know, make them do something for you. Ask them if them did go check the lawyer for me. What go on, you know? Right. So somebody on the inside, somebody have to dead upon the inside for communicate on behalf of the person's lock up.
Alright.
I think that can help. But they never really want that because sometimes injustice.
No, we're not business about that. We're not business about what they want.
That's why when I say that, I actually doubt nothing like that can really happen. Because I can't tell you that is something that where them ever want.
Alright.
That are too much access, too much. You understand? Because when you lock up the whole EMF, you not really can get in touch with the outside, you know.
It don't sound like you've been on the live before.
That's the first man come to your live.
You ever pass through it and see what we are discuss?
Yeah, man. Pass through several times, man.
Okay. So, you've been to any of the drafting sessions before?
What is that?
Okay. So, you haven't been here lately then? You might hear about the traffic thing we normally talk about. But...
Oh, traffic court thing.
Yeah, we usually talk about that here. But over the past month and a half, going to 2 months now, we have been doing what's called constitutional drafting.
Alright, the traffic thing now, I'm not really, based on me, see, traffic court, I really miss the meaning, you know.
Right.
I miss the meaning, traffic, I miss the meaning thing. It's either you go just pay the fine, or if you can't pay the fine, you probably go run 1 month, 2 or 3 or so, I miss the meaning of that. But in a serious matter now, where it come like a life and death, that I think people for more worry about that traffic offense. I miss them, you know.
Right, but you can still go to jail if you can't pay the fine. If you end up a court.
Yeah, but nothing a long time. Just one little probably, you know. I don't know. Man, I run remand for all 9 years. 9 years. That's what I mean. No.
Right.
9 years out of remand.
All right, but hear me I say. You see what we are doing over here, so? You see, like how you say, boy, you don't feel like them something there can really go on a yard because too much access are, you know, the powers that be now go on, them things that go into effect and all them something there, right?
No, I highly doubt that.
Right.
I highly doubt it.
So what we are doing over here, so, is we are draft a new constitution.
Oh, okay. You are do that?
We, all of the people them with up on the live, them make suggestion, them submit things and all of that. So that's why I ask you, how you think we could have fixed the problem where you just described?
All right, the way I'm just tell you that that would actually be a good one, right? But it will come with a strong pushback.
No, man, we don't worry about that. We not look for no problem right now. We are look for solutions.
Okay, well, that are one of my solution. But the way them have tell us still, you know, they do have people who work close with lockups like JP, which JP, me not really see where that makes sense in terms of lockup because whenever the JP come there, him not come for leg on a body.
No, man, here wagwan. You see, because you're used to the system of wagwan, I think you're still getting tied up in how something like this could have even work because the system already set. We not worry about that. We are everything we think about in a society, from taxes to banking, every single thing, we are changing the constitution.
Oh, okay. You can change. You have them power there? You can do that?
We as a people have that power,
I
not the
mean,
state.
I hear a lot of persons, talk about the same thing and it just never happen.
Right. So
Right?
what have
Because I know them don't have the willpower nor even the capacity to do it.
yeah, we not go march on them something there. We not go out there picketing and go asking and begging and sending letters and all of that. That is not how you accomplish that. You see me? So we all come together, we look and see what we have, and then if we don't have a solution and somebody come up with a new idea where we can accomplish something better than what we have now, that is what we are implementing in the constitution.
Right. Okay.
You see me? So that is really what we're over here doing. Yes, we know all of the problem we currently have, but it's only because we don't have people who follow the letter of the law. And the reason them not do that are because there are no consequences written in law for these things. Whenever them violate,
Right.
them not have no consequence. Everything flow to the court. And that is our major problem.
Okay.
Right.
But
So if we
when it comes to things like making lawful suggestions
right.
or for put things in place when it comes to the law here, I think that would be an uphill task for anyone who actually who don't have any name. Then no one recognize you, because in this country people have to really recognize you have to be somebody for them to even listen to you, right? So if you have that capacity there, or you know anyone in that capacity, then you can go ahead.
Right. Well,
I definitely wouldn't even go there. Yeah.
Jaja. Well,
But yeah, persons can try, nothing wrong with trying.
okay.
But based on what I see, the system is already set. The system out here is already set, right? You have to just work with it. It works, whether it works in a favor or not, but it works. That's how I see it.
Okay.
It
Well,
might sound harsh. It might sound harsh because a man can be innocent, really, really innocent, and because he not have certain bucketive, certain money, certain people can tell you the system are gonna bring you down if you not stand up firm. Because first and foremost, you cannot afford legal representative, right? And that are the first thing now.
right.
That is the first thing where actually on your way to prison already.
And
Right? But some legal aid lawyer, I think them do a good job still. I think them do a good job, but I don't think all of them really make an effort to defend a person who the system appoint a lawyer for them.
okay, okay. All right. Well, big up yourself still. We're gonna continue and we're gonna take some of these things into consideration and see how we can implement solutions. But me get what you say still, it is a daunting task, but we have put things together over here. It is not to bash the
Yeah, man,
system,
it's
but
very
we know
rough,
it's not.
man.
It's not easy.
It's very rough. You see, one of the things finally, you have some inmates, I think them call them remandees, right? Where, like right out here in Jamaica, the remandees, them really have it rough, some of them, right? The system is like the system see you in such a way, right? It seems like them deemed Jamaican worse people, the inmates, them, because some of them have some really serious charges, right? So it seems like the system really write them off, and it's only a good and proper lawyer who can stand up for you can really get you off. If you don't have that, you'll be going to prison in Jamaica. That's how I see it.
Right. Yeah, that's how it is almost everywhere, but we have to work for a change, is it? Yeah,
Yeah,
man. So big
true.
up yourself. Thank you.
All right, respect.
Cool. Alright, so peeps, like I am saying, right? We are not here to challenge the system. We are not here to combat the system. We are not here to do anything with the system. What we see in Jamaica right now, we are not trying to change it. We are basically, it's just like you have one pot over here, so we have soup in it, and we say, you know something? We don't want no soup. We are come over here, so, and we are going to put on one pot with rice, and we are put one pot over here, so, with curry goat. We don't want no soup. We don't keep on the soup over there, so, we are make for our own food over here, so. That is literally what we are doing. We not try to change the colonial system. We not try to convince nobody. We not try mess with what is currently going on. What we are do, and I try, we are try. What we are do is we literally create the first constitution of Jamaica. For those who did not know, Jamaica does not have a constitution. It has not had a constitution since the so-called independence of Jamaica in 1962. We don't have one. What we have is what's called a constitutional framework. It is something that is left in place so that the system would not crumble when the British decide that so-called Jamaica is independent. So from that time until now, we have still been living under colonial rule. And for those who are on the live and they're still wondering, what the hell this man talk about? Where am I talk about colonial rule and Jamaica this and Jamaica that? We still lawful over here, so I'm going to show you. We talk about this many times and I showed it many times, but I'm going to show you for yourself. Alright? I'm going to show you in two places so that you can see for yourself. The Jamaica Constitution. 1962. Here we go. So I'm going to show you again what we are talking about when we say Jamaica is not independent and Jamaica does not have a constitution. All right? So let's take a look. So here let us start with the Independence Act. This is the document that claims that Jamaica is independent. All right? This is the Independent Act of 1962. If you scroll down to the first page, or page 2, page 1 is telling you this is the Act and the arrangement of sections, which is the table of contents. And here we have the first page. And right at the very top of the document, it tells you an act to make provision for and in connection with the attainment by Jamaica of fully responsible status within the Commonwealth. Right? Again, many people don't know what that is. You don't know what you read, you don't know what that means. All you have to do is look up the word Commonwealth and see what it means. This is where the British created another enclosed system where all of the countries who were claiming that they want independence, this is where they put them, in our next box. So instead of them are ruled directly under the British, they are ruled in the Commonwealth. This is why we have a Privy Council. It simply means that the laws of the country are not derived by the people. And therefore, the rule of law goes all the way to the head, which is the Privy Council. And we have had people come on here trying to spew foolishness already, and they cannot point to anything. Right? Here we are pointing to what we are talking about. Again, it said Jamaica. It did not say the people of Jamaica. It never said the natives of Jamaica. It said by Jamaica. Jamaica is what? What do we consider Jamaica? Jamaica is the corporate structure. Jamaica is the governmental structure. Jamaica is still the name that has been used by the British from colonial times until now. So, it is for the attainment by Jamaica, the country, the corporation, to have fully responsible status in the Commonwealth. It never say free. It never say without rule. It never say to be responsible for their own government. It says fully responsible status. Status. That's all it changed. You are reading the document in front of you. You can go and download it yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. So when you not jump up and I say, we have independence in Jamaica, it is not independence. It is independence for the corporation, for them to move from under the British foot to the British shoes, which is the Commonwealth. Next, this is the Constitution, what we are called Constitution. Right? When we look at this document, it says the Jamaica Order in Council 1962. Yes, it's a constitution is in brackets. Let me zoom it in for you. Wanna see? It's a constitution is in brackets. Anything in brackets is a reference. You should know this. Everybody should know this. In any legal context, when you put things in bracket, it means it is only a reference. It is referring to something. It is not a part of the actual text of the document. It is just a reference. He said this is something like a constitution. And if you scroll down, it is referred again all over the place. You see it said? The Jamaica Constitution Order in Council 1962. When you keep scrolling down, you keep seeing the same thing. You see the heading? All of the headings are the same. So it is a reference to what should be. They're basically saying if you want to create a constitution, this is an example of how you create it. Right? So when you go through this document and you look, when you go to section 4, let us show you. For those of you who are not aware. This section is entitled Existing Laws. Hear what it says. All laws which are enforced in Jamaica immediately before the appointed day, which is the day that this document goes into effect. So all laws enforced in Jamaica immediately before the appointed day shall, you see it says shall, means it must, continue in force on or after that day. And all laws which have been made before that day but have not previously been brought into operation may be brought into force in accordance with any provisions on that behalf. Blah, blah, blah. So all of the colonial laws that were in force before this constitution was drafted and enacted, all of those laws were now brought forward. So that means that we are still under colonial rule. The only difference is, you can't even say there's a difference, because the crown is still listed on court documents. The crown is still listed all over the place. So as much as people want to say, oh, it is just ceremonial, oh, it is just symbolic, oh, it is only this, why is it still in our legal structure? Why is it still in our legal system embedded? Because they cannot remove it without asking the crown for permission. Or the other alternative is to allow the people to have direct voting. And that is what has been missing. We don't have direct voting. We have a representative voting system. Voting for local representatives and then representatives voting. It don't even make no sense, but we're not going to go into politics. Okay? We're not going to go into politics. And there has always been a remedy. There has always been a remedy. I'm going to show you something again. I'm going to show you something. 20. There should be another section, you know. Let's see, there was, what page is that? And I have the page numbers in this. I'm gonna show you something. So that was the first section. All right, they have another included, several included documents in here. These are the schedules. So that is the first section, right? I'm gonna show you something. Prorogation. All right. Prorogation and dissolution of Parliament. All right, section 63 of the Constitution, right? You see what it says? Summoning, prorogation, and dissolution of Parliament. Right? Each session of Parliament shall be held at such place within Jamaica and shall commence at such time as the Governor General may, by proclamation published in the Gazette, appoint. Session shall be held at such time, blah, 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 blah. Right? These are for sessions of Parliament. You see, a lot of times we see these words, you know, but we just run over them. We just continue reading. Do you know what the word summoning means? Do we realize what summoning is? Summoning is necromancy. Regardless of how it is used, you know. You can use many other words. You can say, you know, the coming together of Parliament. You can say this. You can put things a different way, but the terms that are being used, they are intentional. So it is not something of a mistake. All of these words are intentionally used. So when they use prorogation and dissolution, if you don't go and look them up and find the legal meanings of these words, your common sense is not going to save you. Right? Exactly, Kwaku. Exactly. So, when they summon Parliament and when they summon the election, after Parliament is dissolved every 5 years, it is we the people who come back together and bring it back to life. That is why they have the elections. It is we the people who come back around and bring Parliament back to life. Action now, JA say, what does summoning mean? Let us go to the Law Dictionary. R and S. SU. Summon. So we have the word summon, right? Now, in this dictionary, it is strictly talking about a court. It is talking about a defendant. And we know, I can't even say no, right? But let us go to another dictionary as well. Let's use the Bouvier's Law Dictionary. Come on. Solicitor, suspense. Because we know all the dictionaries are going to give us more extensive meanings, right? That is why we don't stick to all the new ones. So this again is talking about a defendant, right? But it doesn't have the word summoning, right? A summoner is a petty officer whose sight meant to appear in court. And a petty officer, not even going to go into it. Let us use a different dictionary, concise law dictionary. Let's see if this one has it. So far, we have not found the word summoning. That's why I'm opening the other ones. Because summoning is a word of art in summons. Summons. Again, we don't have summoning as a legal term that is being defined, right? But if we look up the word summoning, I'm pretty sure most of you already know what we're going to find. Right? Google. I need to set up the search engine for this. Summoning. You see? Never really have to go much further, but let us look up Cambridge. Let's look up etymology. Now we're going a little bit off topic here now, but anyways, we're gonna bring it up. Here we have an etymology dictionary online, right? Summon. So it is still not giving us summoning, but let us look up the root word summon. Is a verb, right? Basically to do something. It says summon means to call, send for, or ask the presence of, especially call, cite, or notify by authority to be at a certain place at a certain time. Anglo-French, summon ray, and directly from Old French, summon ray, variant, blah, blah, blah. This is from Vulgar Latin, to call or to cite. Hint to, remind, or advise privately, from assimilated form of sub, under, right? So under means that it is under somebody else's authority, right? To admonish, warn, or advise. Right? The meaning, arouse, excite to action. Summon, noun, a calling, notification by authority to be in a certain place at a certain time. Right? So again, this is the root word, summon, to call forth, right? You're basically telling someone that they must appear somewhere. But if you notice all of these words, when you try to get the actual definition of summoning, it is bringing you back to the word summon. All of these words. Yes, it... So it doesn't necessarily mean... What happened to them comment here? Something equal, summoning equal calling. Calling or bringing something to you, either physically, emotionally, or magically. So it doesn't necessarily mean necromancy, it's just to call forth. Right. Summoning comes from the word summon, Summon means to call forth, right? So summoning is what? An action. It is an action verb, right? So that means you are doing something. You're in the motion of doing something, right? So, when we say summoning, if you hear the word summoning, you want to tell me that you mean, what's the first thing come to your mind? When I talk about just using the term as it is, because while we have root words, right, we also have the terms themselves. So while something comes from something to call forth, it does not say what. You know, in common English language, it is talking. You know what? I could come off of the topic here. I come off of the topic here. Because I really want to go down the rabbit hole here with all of you know. You don't know what I talk about, right? Actually, now JA says, no, we can't jump to what comes to mind, right? We must exercise due diligence and research it. As you can see, I put the term in Google, right? You see it right there, don't? And what we got back was the word summon, as you can see here. So we cannot find the common definition of the term summoning as we have in the Constitution. So it is not just to say we are use common definition. The word is not defined in the common usage. And when we use the word summon, we don't have nobody in our society that walk around and say, I summon you to come forth, or I am hereby summoning you. We don't use those terms in any part of the world today. So we can't say the common usage of the term. What I do know is that it is not a proper English term to use when you're calling someone. So, okay, you say you won't find summoning because that is the verb derived from summon. That don't make no sense, Bridget. What I am saying is this. I am sure the term summoning is somewhere. It is just that I am not going to go into the text that is going to be using that term, right? Because that is going into spiritual talk. I mean, I can really go and go too far off topic. I try bring that up. But the point is that we have the Constitution, right? We have the constitutional framework that uses the term, but it is not defined. It's not defined nowhere. That is what I am saying. And the use of the term, go back to section 63. 60. Where is it gone? 61, 63, right? The term is being used in the Constitution, right? And it is not an ordinary term that is defined in an English dictionary nor in a legal dictionary, right? So that is what I am saying. They are not going to use a word in this document that does not mean anything. And if we're going to say summoning is just the action form of the word summon, we would be incorrect. Summoning. Anyways, we're not going to beat a dead horse. We're going to leave that alone. That now go further our conversation on the constitutional draft. What is important here is that what we are doing over here so is in plain English. Plain English. So we don't have to worry about words of art. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole of trying to find out what all of these old English words mean. Right? So, what are the plans to get the new constitution into effect? First, we need to complete the constitutional draft. I'm not going to be discussing that before time. What we are doing now is we're contributing to the draft. And once we have all of the suggestions and we have considered all of the problems that we would like to fix and all of the suggestions are in place, then we move on to the next stage, right? But we're not there yet to talk about enacting and putting into force and effect the Constitution, the first Constitution. Where do we do it? You're talking about making suggestions? So what we have been doing over here is going over the draft and adding things. To make suggestions, you go to voiceofjamaica.com. Just go back. You go to voiceofjamaica.com. Right? You scroll down a little bit, and the first post will say New Constitution. That is what you click on. And under New Constitution, we have the document that we're reading from. You can download your copy. We also have a Declaration of Independence. If you want to make a suggestion, here it has constitutional draft suggestions, and you can fill out this form to submit your suggestion. When you submit your suggestion, it is going to show up down here. These were the past suggestions that were made that were also incorporated in the draft. If they are neutral, they are incorporated in the draft, or we discuss it and we figure out a way to include it, right? So these were the previous submissions that were made, right? And that is how you make your submissions. If there is something that you would like to include or something you think needs to be changed, etc., etc., right? So here we have criminal law and public order. Right? What our money going to be backed by? What is our money backed by right now? Do you have a timeline to complete this? No, we don't have a current timeline. It is just that when we are complete with the document, we're hoping within the next few weeks to a month, then we can move on to stage 2. Right? So we don't have a current deadline because we cannot rush the drafting session. So we want to make sure, again, just in case we are those wondering out there, this document again is an encompassing of all the laws of the country. So we are ensuring that if something is a law, it is included in this document. We are not going to have these acts of parliament and all these other separate legislations outside of this document here. So if we have things that we need to include, that is why it is going to take some time to include everything in here. So we're going to look at other examples from other laws, from other jurisdictions and so forth, which we have done so far, in terms of their constitution, but also in other acts, in other parliamentary legislations. We're also including other elements where we can improve upon, right? Not just what we have here in Jamaica, and not just, just arbitrary things that we come up with. We want to ensure that we have a complete body of law in a single text document. No more legislation being crafted every single year. And amendments to things, and you have to have the amendment and the original and read them together and all kind of confusion. We're eliminating that with a single constitutional lawful document. If it is not in the document, it is not law. It's that simple, right? Or unless it is authorized by the Constitution. So, criminal law and public order, right? Definition of crime, enforcement, authority, and accountability. We've been through this one before. But criminal law exists to protect the safety, dignity, and peace of the people. A crime is an act that intentionally causes serious harm to another person, to the public, or the security of Jamaica. Right? And the definition, the actual term crime, has has been defined in the definition and meaning section, right? No act shall be considered a crime unless it is clearly defined within this constitution. And this is an appropriate limit that we need to put, because sometimes we have actions being regarded as crimes by the court, and yet still it is not on the books. So the court is saying that Parliament ought to have put this in there, or they should have mentioned this. Or no, if it is not something written down as a law, then you cannot be convicted of a crime under such conditions. We can't be convicted of something that we don't know, or something that was not enacted into law. Elements of a crime. For an act to be considered a crime, the following elements must exist. A prohibited act, which is a clearly defined action that violates law. 2. Intent or knowing conduct. The person understood or intended the action. And 3. The harm or risk of harm. The act caused or created serious harm to a person or the public. If any of these elements are absent, the act shall not be considered a crime. Right? So something that is an accident or something that was not intended, that cannot be considered to be a crime. We got Sam Zulu want to come up. Presumption of innocence. Every person accused of a crime is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Sam Zulu.
Hi, good day. Is it morning? Is it evening? How are you?
Good evening, lawful. Yeah, man, we're good.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, what's going on?
I'm a law student, bro. I'm a law student, so interesting. Today I was studying criminal law. I was reading about Ara versus Henry Prince, the guy that a girl lied to him. A girl lied to him saying she was 18 years old, but apparently she was 14 years old, and then he was convicted of rape. But the defense said, I was lied to. I didn't know. She told me she was 18 years old. So how was I to know? But despite that, and this is interesting because we're talking about mistakes and things like that, despite that, he was convicted of rape, which was confusing because a different case, it was held by the court. It was held that if someone is innocent, if they do not know, then they will be acquitted. So I don't know.
Right. So did he have an attorney? Well, he should have, most likely.
He did.
So how did they prove mens rea?
So the mens rea is not something they proved. So what the court held, if I can recall the exact words, they said it was not really about the mens rea being there because the action was done. Yes, the actus rea, but how did they say it? It's like they were strict on the law. Ignorance of the law is not a defense.
Right. But that is not ignorance in that case. It is
exactly because he was lied to.
Right. So if there is no way for him to prove it, I mean, of course you can ask for someone's ID, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was interesting, man. It was controversial, really. It was controversial because then I was thinking, he was lied to. Anyone can be lied to. He asked. The facts of the case are, the accused asked the young girl, saying, how old are you? She said, I'm 18 years. Said, oh, cool. And then he did what he was supposed to do as a man. And then the father knew. The father knew what happened. So the girl pointed, and then only to be told the girl was 14 years old.
Right. Well, sometimes we have situations like this where the court is ruling contrary to the law.
Yeah, true.
Right? Because in most courts, I'm going to say most courts around the world, they have statutory law and they have common law, but common law seems to be taking precedence.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So what's the point of statutory law? What's the point of making laws if the court is going to now fall back on its own rulings?
Exactly the point.
So, this is why, we're drafting these things in a constitution, because if we don't limit the power of courts, if we don't limit the power of judicial discretion, or remove judicial discretion, then we are going to be subject to these arbitrary rules of law forever.
Yeah.
Especially if it is proven that someone tells a lie, the whatever punishment should be turned around onto that person.
Yeah.
But hey, this is why, it is important that people come together and make their rule of law, instead of relying upon, a parliament or a senate or a general assembly to make the rules for them, because this is what happens.
And what's really interesting now, I'm in Zambia. What's interesting is that there are times that the judiciary, legislature, and executive, there's no separation of power, right?
Right.
So the guy that is on top, the president, has the power to put his people in the judicial space.
Right.
Meaning to say, he begins now to amount power for himself, because then there's no precedence. These guys can come in and just give any judgment on what they feel is going to suit them.
Right.
So it's important that we have these things put in the constitution. The constitution becomes supreme, but I don't know. It's tough here.
Well, it's not actually tough.
Yeah.
It is. The problem is people don't know that it's possible.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good perception.
Because really, let's say, for example, people know if you go outside or if you go to the town tomorrow, somebody will be there giving out $500 bills.
Man.
They will go, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it is a matter of knowing. If you know that, a collection of the people can come together and put in force law that will benefit the people, people would do it. People would agree.
True.
So I mean, it's not that simple, obviously, but that is where you start. Everything needs the assent of the people. That's why you have voting.
Yes, it's possible. It's not that simple, but it's possible.
Right. But yeah, thank you for coming up and sharing that. That is one of the topics that we cover in this constitutional draft, so that we can make a change.
Yeah, true. I appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yes.
This is why there is gatekeeping of the laws and legal process. Right. One of the problems we have in Jamaica is that nobody, as a matter of fact, I'm not even going to just say Jamaica. I'm going to say in many places around the world, nobody knows the legal steps they need to take to do anything. You literally crash and burn, you get up, you crash and burn, you get up, you listen, you pay attention, you research, you look at rulings, you look at what lawyers are doing, and you hope to catch on, right? And it is largely by doing and making mistakes, you figure out the system little by little by little, because there is no rule book, there is no step-by-step manual. And that is one of the things we're going to include in here, right? A step-by-step of what each type of case is supposed to be. What steps are you supposed to take in order to get a case initiated or commenced all the way to judgment? And we need that. We don't need to have an incompetent or a legally incompetent populace. We need to have, when people finish with school and they get out there in society, they can literally just get up, put their documents together, file a case, and resolve a matter. And the court should not be having cases going on for years unnecessarily. Right? So, anyways. So, under presumption of innocence, every person accused of a crime is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Right? The burden of proof rests entirely on the party making the accusation or the charge. Guilt must be proven through clear evidence presented in open court. Right? So, when we talk about someone getting charged or someone suing someone, right, we don't need 500 different rules to say, well, you know, it is very, very simple. Very simple. And the simpler the thing is, the harder it is to create loopholes. So that's why sometimes you will have like a code of civil procedure, right? And it is 200 pages, just that one legislation, 200 pages. A matter of fact, let us look at the current one we have in Jamaica. Where is it? The civil procedure rules. Let us pull that up. Where do we have this? Civil procedure rules. Civil procedure rules, right? This document is a whopping 636 pages. So if you want to learn all the rules regarding the civil procedure in Jamaica, you have over 600 pages to go through. Now, mind you, it does have a section for forms in here, right? But look at this. Look at this. This is the table of contents. This is the table of contents. Why? Why? You see this? This is just the table of contents, over 20 pages. Why do we need all of this? Huh? So, when we talk about priorities, right? We have to do something about this, right? I am not saying that we shouldn't have court rules, you know, but a lot of these rules that are in here are mostly for attorneys, and the regular individual who may want to file a case, you think they're going to know the procedure for all of this? Attachments of debt, scope of this part, circumstances in which the court may make order for attachment of debt, procedure, money in bank accounts, joint funds, presumption of equal shares in joint funds, attachment. You see, all of these things, the court should not be having rules related to this thing. If someone has a money judgment, you simply order that that somebody pays, right? You simply order that the corporation pays. You simply, I mean, this is interpleader, sale of land by order of court, right? I don't think habeas corpus. I don't even know why habeas corpus is in here, because this is supposed to be something within criminal law for application for to issue a writ of habeas corpus. That is not a civil matter, and this is a civil procedure rules. Let us see what that is. 300, page 300. $296. Habeas corpus. application for writ of habeas corpus. An application for the issue of a writ of habeas corpus and subjudiciendum must be made to the court. An application under paragraph 1 may be made without notice, but must be supported by evidence on affidavit. Such evidence must be given by the person restrained, stating how that person is restrained. La la. However, if the person restrained is not able to make the affidavit, it may be made by some person on that person's behalf and must state why the person restrained is not able to make the affidavit. The application must be heard in open court unless it is made on behalf of a minor, when it must be heard in chambers. All right. So here, you know, for those who don't know, a writ is what you call an extraordinary remedy, right? So somebody is locked up or being held, and that person needs to be released because either the charge wasn't made in time, or some error of law, or something, some reason for the release of the individual. This should not be happening in the first place. You should not need to apply to the court for someone to be released. Like a lot of these things that are happening, you know, these are still colonial remnants. That is why it is still here. This is why we have over 30 pages of table of contents just for the rules of court, civil procedure rules, right? And this is considered to be court law, you know. In many cases, if you don't follow these rules, the court will not grant you what you're asking for. So all of this would be condensed into simple rules of conduct for individuals in the court. This should not determine, you know, all of these different things that is being applied here. All of these things it's just too much. For a regular individual, it is too much. 636 pages. This is like Anyways, we're not here to criticize. I'm just showing you that all of these rules that they put together for a court, it is not law. It is enforced as law, because who are you going to complain to? Who are you going to complain to says these rules are too voluminous? Nobody. So unless the government is held accountable to the people again, then we are literally at the mercy of arbitrary whim, because the courts can change their rule at any time. Anyways, standards of proof. Criminal guilt must be proven beyond reasonable doubt. Evidence must be reliable, verifiable, and subject to examination in court. Evidence obtained through coercion, deception, or unlawful intrusion shall not be used. And these are the basics, right? If you are forced to give evidence, or forced to give testimony, or forced to give evidence, it is coercion. And, you know, there are many times we have in our system of law where some of these things are allowed to proceed, right? Anyways, so here we have categories of crime. We have crimes against person, crime against property, crime against public trust, crime against national security, and crime against public safety. So this is all publicly related, right? Except for crime against person and property. Equality under criminal law. The criminal law applies equally to all persons. Right? No public official, military officer, or government authority shall possess immunity for criminal prosecution. So if a charge is laid, nobody has immunity. Everybody is held to the same letter of the law. Any person who violates the law shall be subject to the same judicial process. And that includes judges, that includes senators, that includes everybody, which we're not really going to have senators. We're going to call them parish commanders, right? Anybody who is found to violate the law, it don't matter which mountaintop you live on, we are come for you, right? Law enforcement authority. Law enforcement of criminal law shall be carried out by public peace service, right? So this would be the new name of the law enforcement arm of the public. Right? The Public Peace Service. The Public Peace Service shall operate under the authority of the Constitution and the supervision of parish leadership. Law enforcement officers shall act only within clearly defined legal authority. Right? You know, come to think about it, right? You know, I should have brought up the case, but I don't have it in front of me. There was an English case one time. So how did we come about this judicial immunity and this public servant immunity and so forth? How did we get to that stage? Did you know that there was a court case where the judge was asked, you know, where did this immunity thing come from? And the judge literally said that if they were supposed to have, if they were to allow prosecution of those people who violate the law or violate people's rights, right? Whether it be a police officer or it be a judge or it be, you know, someone in the court, if they were to allow these lawsuits, then they would have no judges and they would have no court personnel. I am going to find back the case and I am going to show it to you when I get a chance. But they literally said if they were to allow anyone to be sued, including the judges, then they would not have a reliable court system. And I was so shocked reading the thing, I had to read it a couple of times because I am saying to myself, so if you have no confidence in the integrity of the judicial officers, then why should the public trust any of them? You know, again, I am not going to talk about things just yet, you know, because you know I like to point to the evidence, but it was just egregious. It was egregious to read, you know. But and this is why the judicial immunity came about, where they're saying as long as a judge is acting as a judge, they're immune from prosecution. But the question of what is a judicial act is the other thing, right? Because many times there are judges who don't act like a judge. So, in fact, they are not using judicial immunity as a shield. They are acting in their personal capacity. Because judicial immunity only comes into play when you are actually doing judicial functions, right? If you are telling someone something that is unlawful or something that is a lie, that is not a judicial act. Absolutely. Right, that's why I'm saying it is not only in Jamaica. But that is the problem as well. It is worldwide. But that being the case, many people don't even bother going down that route, and the attorneys are definitely not going to attempt to sue a judge. It is always an individual who takes up that task, right? So the individual has to study and practice and do all these kinds of things to try to hold someone who is adjudicating unlawfully against them, right, to gain justice. Anyways, arrest procedures. A person may be arrested only when there is clear evidence that a crime has been committed. The arrested person must be informed immediately for the reason for the arrest. The arrested person must be brought before a lawful court within a reasonable time. And we are going to change this reasonable time here to within 24 hours, right? Judges' immunity doesn't mean that they can't be sued, because if a judge acts outside of the law, there is no judicial immunity for an act. Exactly, right? Attorneys and judges are of the same fraternal order. That is true. You know, I was just talking about this earlier. Judges are attorneys. Yet still, there is no constitution that states that judges are to be attorneys. The judges are simply attorneys that have practiced law for a period of 7 to 12 years to start, right? That is when they become a magistrate. And then when they practice for another 7 to 10 years, they now get elevated, or they have the chance to elevate beyond whatever they are doing, and so forth and so forth. So the entire judicial system is being run by attorneys, which again, it goes to show you that we don't have an independent and impartial court, or independent and impartial tribunal, right? So this is what, page 38. I'm going to make a note here to change that. There's a page 38, and that is 9.3. They summoned the police in case twice now, and he is a no-show. Yeah, well, you have to come to class. If you want to learn better and do better, you have to be a signatory. We can talk about how to deal with those situations here. All right. Protection against abuse of authority. Law enforcement officers are personally responsible for unlawful actions taken under color of authority. And color of authority means that you are pretending to act under the law, but in fact you are not. Right? It is just a color. It's what looks like the law, but it is not the law. Abuse of authority. Let me write that down. So, color of authority. You gotta define those things, you know. Abuse of authority by a public officer constitutes a criminal crime. Constitutes a crime, not criminal crime. So that is 10.2. Why is my pen not working? 10.2. I'm gonna make some changes. 10.2. All right. Anushka, every day that happens in the streets and worse, the judges are defending what was done. Yeah, there are many reports of that. Sentencing principles. Punishment for criminal conduct must be clearly defined in law, proportionate to the harm caused, and determined through lawful court judgment. Right? Punishment may include restitution to victims, required public labor, restrictions on liberty, removal from public office, other lawful penalties established under this constitution. Right? You know, there's a topic that I want to talk about, but we can't discuss it yet. We cannot discuss it just yet. It has to do with the penalties that we would like to see within society when, you know, we have certain situations happening, right? Got restitution to victim and so forth. Let me see. There's a section here. So just like in the previous sections, right, where we talk about transparency, a public record system, right? All criminal proceedings must be documented and publicly recorded. So this is embedded in the Constitution in all places where documentation is required, right? Anything in the public, it must be publicly recorded. Evidence, rulings, and judgments shall become part of the permanent record. So that way, again, we cannot be charging people to retrieve records. We cannot be charging people to file things. We cannot be charging. We already built the institutions. I saw abuse of authority today where the police searched two-man park in a town center in front of KFC. Police and judge, knowing they break the law, should be fined and confined. You know, it's one of those things where this is why I always say we need public cameras. I'm gonna bring up scientists. We need public cameras, right? Because let us say if we have situations where anyone is violating the law, we should be able to prosecute them. Not just individuals, any public official, anyone in office, anyone who is so-called exercising a duty. Nobody is immune. Nobody has any pardon. We have to be able to ensure that everybody is treated equally when it comes to the law, right? So that is why we need a transparent system. If it is our money that built the institution in the first place, how can we still be charged a fee? It don't make no form of sense. But that is what is happening. We are the ones who put the tax dollars together to build the tax office, to build the government buildings, to build all of these places. It is our money. That's why them always say, it's the taxpayers' money, it's the taxpayers' money. So if it is the taxpayers' money who is running all of this, why are the taxpayers still being charged a fee beyond what we already built? Why are we being held to a standard that doesn't make sense? I could have seen if, I know we build it, and it is not ours. But the fact that it is our money that is being used to build the roads, our money used to build the tolls, our money is used to build the highways, our money is being used to do everything, and then them turn on a charge with on top of it. It is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. We as a people, it come like say, anyways. So, public duty. Every person in Jamaica shares responsibility for maintaining peace and order. Citizens may report criminal activity and cooperate with lawful investigations, right? So right now, many people don't have any confidence in the legal system. So sometimes some people I'll see some things are going on and they don't report it. Because the mindset is that even if I report it, what is going to happen? If people are come on national TV and a ball say them rights get violated and nothing is going on with that, why would me taking time out of my day to report something going on, how would that make a difference? No. And that is very sad, because that means that we have nobody to turn to if we have a problem in society. Read number 2. Which one? At the top, it says evidence, rulings, and judgments shall become part of the permanent record. Right? And when we talk about, for example, the police apprehending people, remember we already say when this goes into effect, every police officer that come out of the office, we interact with the public, everybody have to wear body cam. Everybody. And if you tamper with it, you got jail. It's that simple. Well, we're not going to have jail. So we're going to come up with appropriate punishments for things like that. But if you tamper with the equipment at any given time, you're getting reprimand immediately. Immediately. And after searching them and the car without a reason, they found nothing. Yeah, that is the reality. And no, I bet you their name tags weren't shown. I bet you nobody knows who they are. Right? So, if we have something like a public record system, we don't have to wonder. We all don't have to get dash cams now. Right? If we have all the public officials wearing body cameras, right? And every time they start movement, it starts recording. Anytime movement is detected, it is recording, right? We don't have to worry anymore. We would not have to worry anymore. We don't need to be trying to create our own evidence. So that way, if something goes afoul, nobody no need to come up with a story. Let us see the footage. That's simple. And once the footage is available, then we know exactly what happened. That is when we would start having true integrity. Right? Anyways. So, sentencing and determination of harm. This article establishes a lawful and uniform method for determining harm and imposing sentence, right? Now, like we discussed before, next thing them are going to say, you have to pay for the footage. That's why, we already eliminated all the fees, right? But it's not going to be them. There is no them anymore. Once we put this in place, there is no such thing as them. It is going to be we the people. Because every major decision that needs to be made, it is going to require public vote, direct public vote. You're not voting for a representative. You are voting directly on matters. Anything that is going to affect the public, we should and we will have direct voting on it. So that way, nothing goes into effect until we the people assent to it. And we simply do it by our public vote, right? So, like we said before, we would eliminate all of these prisons. I don't think confining people just to sit down in one space being unproductive is a smart way to engage those who are found to have committed crimes. I say we put them to work for free labor. We make them clean up all of the roads them. We make them chop down tree. We make them dig out culvert and pit and all them something. They give them public work to do. The only payment they get is that they get food and then get a place to sleep. That's it. And couple suit of clothes. They have to work off back for the trouble with them cause society. Right? We don't want to have prisons where people sit down there and smell whatever. And if we have such a system where we don't have to exactly, no more good life here, prisoner. If we have a system where we don't have to worry about the criminals coming back out and doing certain things, we can also come up with the penalties. We don't wait for others to make our decisions for us. Right? Yeah, man, we start make some good public areas. Like a urinal, make one big long urinal. A bathroom, several toilets and whatever. We have people clean up and everything. Teach them true hygiene, teach them how, social skills and things like that. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So if them now work, them can't sit down, so them have to do something productive. And like we say, we're going to have public cameras. So we should have institutions where if we have prisoners, it is not a choice whether or not them go to school and go learn things. It is mandatory. Right? So we have education, and if them keep on misbehave, them get more penalties. And that is one of the other things we will talk about at the latter part of once we're done with this editing. We're going to talk about the penalties that we can impose on people as a society, right? And these things are going to be voted on. Because at the end of the day, if we can have a more productive society, right? Where we can say, all right, let's say we have a place that needs to be built up, right? We use them, if them know how to mix mortar, Them know how to do construction, them know how to do any kind of skill. You put them out a road, make them go work. Have them under the strict curfew. We can use law enforcement for that to supervise them. Anybody run? Alright. You see me? That is how we're supposed to rebuild our society. We're not supposed to go out there and get contracts, pay this, pay that, do this. No, man. No, man. We need to slow down. We need to focus on solutions that we can locally provide for certain things. Right? So that way we don't waste away people, have them sit down there for no reason at all. Let us bring up D-Nick 37.
Hello?
Evening, D-Nick, wagwan.
Hi, night. Is that error? Like my hand accidentally select the request.
Okay. Alright, no problem.
Right. Can take me out of the box. Alright.
Yeah. Yeah. Alright, Raja. So yeah, these are some of the solutions we can put back into society, right? Another thing that we can look into is we can put together programs that teach basic skills, right? You know, back in the day, we used to have, sewing class. We used to have, woodworking, and all of them different little skills there where kids can learn in a high school and those kind of places and whatever. We need to have these institutions open to the public, right? If somebody want to learn how to do certain things, or they want to go in and they want to build a prototype, or get some assistance, read some book, do little experimenting. Well, the experimenting part we kind of most likely have to confine that, right? And supervise certain kind of experimenting, especially with chemicals and stuff, right? But when we talk about allowing, let me turn around and talk to you, right? Because years ago I had a friend of mine, and he brought up a very important point, because we have children around the world that are deemed to be geniuses, right? Some can play the piano, some of them can, they can do all sorts of different things. And one day we were having the conversation about, do we really want child geniuses? And you know what he said? He said, you ever think about the fact that the only reason we say a child is a genius is because some children have access to some resources and some children don't. I may have to think about it, and I say, yo, so you're right. You're right. Many children where we see certain talents in society is only because they had access to those resources. Like those who can play the piano. Them not just born to play the piano. They don't just get up and just... No. It is because, first of all, they had access to a piano. That is the first thing. So if a child doesn't have access to these tools to show what skill they have, or to show how they can be proficient in something, then how can we say some are genius and some are not? Because also, if a child doesn't have interest in a certain field, then obviously they don't care. They're not going to have the motivation, right? If they don't have a mentor, if they don't have peers who are in, some activity field, they're probably not going to be interested. But if we make these resources available to our children, pianos, get them into track and field, get them into all these different sports, get them access to some of these facilities where they can foster their ideas, foster their craft, foster their interest. That is where we start getting productivity in society, inventive, creative ideas and ways to do things. But if we just wait for them just pass through the school system and do whatever the teacher them say them to do. We will always be a nation of consumers. You get what I say? So, this is why I think building these public institutions outside of schooling, where children can continue their learning, continue their interests, continue their excitement, for a specific aspect of life, it will be beneficial for everybody. I think manufacturing in Jamaica, is at an all-time low. We are importing a lot of things. I mean, the one thing that is beneficial importing is tourism, right? We get people who want to come and they want to come see the culture. This is one of the reasons why I think Jamaica is not being built up as a nation. If Jamaica is built up to look pretty like foreign, right? I think there is a fear that Jamaica is not going to be the same. Right? So, instead of building up Jamaica community-wise, the only part of Jamaica that is being built is for corporate activity. It's for corporate funding, corporate resources, corporate, everything corporate. And I think that is a really bad way to run a country. Why not make the people them be better so that, alright, because look at it. Again, I am not saying that the government should be responsible for providing housing for everybody. But what is the point of the government? Where do we have the definition of what government is supposed to be doing? It's not there. Obviously, the government is not supposed to be suppressing and violating the rights of people. But in some cases, we have documented evidence that that is what's happening. But let me show you something. If most people in Jamaica own a home, a stable, solid house, right? If everybody had a place to live, say, we would not be complaining about the price of things. Did you know that minimum wage would actually be sufficient? In many cases, the reason why we are suffering is because, one, housing. Number two, we have all kind of taxes and fees. And number three, because everything is going up. The price of items, the price of food, the price of basic necessities keep going up for no reason. Right? And it's not for no reason, it is because of the housing crisis. That is why the prices keep going up. If housing goes up, right, that means that cost of living gone up. And if cost of living gone up, then the price of other items are going to go. So that is a backwards effect of these interest rates and all these different things that people are run go out go get mortgage. Run go out go so-called buy house, which are not buy or buy it. You're running out to get a mortgage. Because if you don't pay it, what happens? If you don't pay it, it is so sad, If you don't pay it, the bank come back for it. And even if the bank sells it for more, they are not alerting you that there is an excess funding that you need to come pick up a check. Right? It is horrible. But we're not waiting to that. The point is, if we had proper housing for everybody, many of the problems we had start going out the door. Right? They literally do these things to keep the people poor. So it seems. So it seems. Right? Now, credit world. Well, so far, that's what it looks like. But here's the thing. You see, if we have a government in place that we control, then we can direct the government to do what we think is important to us as a society of people, of natives, right? Because when was the last time we told the government what to do? When was the last time we gave the government a directive to say, listen, we have this problem, please fix it? Literally never. We complain, we go on the news and we block road, we walk around with picket fence, we complain here, we make reports, we do all of these things except writing a formal declaration to the government as a people and saying, this is our directive, please go ahead and carry out this task. We have not done that yet. So all of these different things we're doing, none of it is in law. Marching is not encoded in law. Picketing is not encoded in law. None of these things that people have been doing over the years, blocking road, burning tire, burning up vehicle and all that something, none of that is in law. That is what's called a public riot, right? Public disturbance. But it is in law. It is in the Constitution, where it is stating that if you have a problem, you can demand redress from the government. You can demand that the government does something about a public problem. But we haven't done so. We haven't come together for anything. If we come together after marching and doing other things other than what is in the law. So when we start complaining to the government or do this, government or do that, we have to also ask ourselves, have we done what is necessary to demand that the government do their job? No, we have not. Right? But at the same time, we know that 70% of the population has no confidence in the government because 70% did not vote. It was only 30% of people who voted. So that is why we have the constitutional draft. Instead of trying to patch together the system that is there, let us just build one. Let us build a completely new infrastructure for Jamaica. So that way, we don't have to fight the system. We don't have to come up with all of these ways and means to go around what is going on. We simply put in place a new constitution. And once it goes into effect, literally, 90% of our problems goes away. From ancient times is the silencing of those who understands the workings of the system, or them buy them out. Yeah, if you are trying to combat the system, that is what happens in many cases. But again, we are not trying to combat the system. Let the system be. We just move away to a completely different one that is different than causing a threat to the authority that is currently there, right? So, what do you think about the body cam? A body cam should be required of any law enforcement agent. Any agent who leaves a police station or interact with the public, they should all have body cams. Every single one of them. No exception. And it should activate on motion. It should be anti-tamper cameras. Anti-tamper camera. So you don't need to turn it on, you don't need to turn it off. It should just activate on motion. If you move, it activated. Right? So that way, you can't say you forgot to turn it on, you forgot to turn it off and all that foolishness. We have so much technology now, it is almost impossible to mess up. Well, I'm not sure. I wouldn't say that we are the first to ask for body cams, but we definitely spoke about it in detail and highlighted the need for it, right? Now, everybody asking about political party, political this, political that, right? And we are not trying to be a political party. We are not trying to assimilate with what is there in the system, right? Because if you are going to create a political party, you're going to fall under the same colonial structure that is currently there. And that is the problem in the first place. If we have a colonial system, then why would we want to conform to the same system and have our so-called rule of it? I don't think that is the way to go, because if we go the colonial route, that means that the colonial masters can always claim dominion over the system, the colonial system. And that is not going to be a good thing if we're talking about being independent as a people. Okay? Independence as a people is different from political independence. Right? And even so, we have never had political independence. We were always placed in the Commonwealth. So it's from bucket to fire. Right? So anyways, now that we have the constitutional draft in place, oh, one more thing we're talking about, right? Who remember when we were talking about land, right? About a couple of lives ago, probably about 3-4 lives ago or more. I talked about it before, but I went into a little bit more detail a couple lives ago. Who remember me talking about land? Land ownership in Jamaica. Anybody? All right, doesn't look like anybody remember, but I talked about land before, where I was telling you that the colonial system does not allow for the ownership of land, right? And we show you, for example, the Beach Control Act and the Land Act and so forth, that we cannot necessarily own the land by title. You know, they issue you a title and all of that. You can't really own the land because the crown did not acquire the land through a legal process. So if they cannot prove how they acquired the land using a legal process, then they have no authority to be issuing titles, right? So you're literally just leasing the land from them, albeit unlawfully, because if it was not acquired under law, then you have no business leasing the land unless it is a allodial title. It doesn't matter what title you get. If it comes from the government, it is not a real title. Allodial title. I'm familiar, but it is still not a true title. And you know, there are always people out there who think that some of the things that I am discussing is up for debate, right? And I always tell you, right? If I say something, I can prove it to you. But on top of that, I found a video, and I'm going to make a response video to this to show some people, right? I found a video. It's a Smile Jamaica video where an attorney was brought up to the program to talk about captured land, right? And I want to let you hear what he had to say, because he is in the legal space, right? So This is the attorney, and I'm going to play the video so you can hear.
So so the squatter now has a right through the doctrine of what we call adverse possession.
Explain that one.
No, adverse possession is pretty much where a squatter or an individual goes, illegally occupies land, and after certain years, in Jamaica 12 years, you can claim the property, but you must actually possess it and pay taxes. So you paying taxes is not enough. This person is actually paying taxes, excluding the world. What do I mean by that? So maybe he or she run a fence, run a property, you know, and it doesn't matter who comes, you are saying it belongs to me. So you as the rightful owner may very well go there and give notice and say, listen, get off my place. And say, listen man, go on with your business. Because not even the notice is sufficient. You need to ensure that you institute legal proceedings to recover the premises.
Let me ask you this though, right? I would kind of take it for granted that people watching understands what the legal definition is of capture land. Is it the same thing that you're talking about?
Same
the
thing.
Adverse possession.
Same thing. Capture
Okay.
land. But there is a little difference with respect to privately owned land and government land.
Give us the difference.
So for private property, like your property never, 12 years would be considered sufficient to, mature in a claim in adverse possession, meaning after 12 years, you can very well claim the land to be yours. But if we're talking about government-owned land here, you have to wait until 60 years. 60 years, because guess what? We know government is not so, efficient. Or put another way, government doesn't have the time to be policing, land. And so you have to give them enough time until they realize. But for you, you have a duty as owner to ensure that you keep your property in good condition.
Final question on my story. What if the person who took over the land, built upon it, cleaning up, putting fence around it, me paying property tax, but he or she is not? Is still them one?
Well, the truth is, it's because it depends on the time. And so what will happen is that you'll have to go to court, because paying taxes is very important, but paying taxes on either side, whether you or the squatter, that is not enough. And if it is that I am actually taking good care of the property, I am, and I am refuting your interest, because many times you have people paying taxes because they hear that, you can pay tax and just get the place. That is not the case. So in that particular situation, the court may very well have to determine whether or not you are still the owner, or whether the ownership has passed to this
But
person.
Mr. Shaw, I buy the land, I have the title, I paying property tax, and I go down there and a man on my land who is not paying property tax, and because him on the land for 12 years, him can't tell me to go on my yard?
Well, and it's, you see, English law is about possessing land. And so it is really the person who is in possession with other things. So because we have a lot of land in Jamaica where, it has become a nuisance, harboring criminals, wild animals, simply because people buy land and just have the land sitting idly. And so the law really does not want that to happen. And so it's really by virtue of that why we have this doctrine of adverse possession. So it's really unfortunate. And then you have some owners who wait until somebody builds up something nicely, and then they just come in and say, listen, get off. And that too now is unjust enrichment. But on either side though, there's going to be a problem. Because I have my land and I'm paying the taxes, and then you just come take over. But which is why would you wait until 12 years though? Because 12 years time means that you're really, abandoning your interest,
But Mr. Shaw, you have a variety of reasons. You have persons watching us right now from a diaspora, family members who have been ill and have been in the hospital for a total of 12 years or longer. And for that reason, they're not able to come back here to Jamaica. But they have been paying the property tax, let's say, and this person who has now taken over this land and has built on it as well, let's say they're paying the property tax as well, and we go to court. who stands to win? If I can show that I have legitimate reasons why I have not been able to come and occupy my land, and I have been paying, land taxes, etc., but this person is now occupying my space, building on it, and paying the taxes, who wins inside a courthouse?
Well, the truth is the person who is actually in possession. And if that person is excluding, so a number of factors will be taken into consideration. But I think the most important one is actual possession. In law, we call it animus possidendi, meaning an intention to possess and actual possession. So,
yeah, no, but Mr. Shaw, so yeah, my producer just said exactly what I was going to say. It's what I win. You said possession, I own it. In other words, I own my car.
yes.
So if I'm not in the car and you drive my car, it's not your one, it's still mine.
And which is why how I started is that you don't really own land.
So the government, you're saying, who owns it, right?
Yes, man.
So hold on, so you
what
have
you have, what you have in
Government
so you have a
property.
Yes.
You have a piece of land, right? You own a piece of land.
Yes.
And you're not using it. And I come to you and say, Mr. Shah, I want to buy a piece of land. And you say, yeah, man, give me $20 and take it.
Yeah.
I say, yeah, sign up everything, get me title. What you mean by I don't own it?
Because what I have is a fee simple interest. I pay a fee, be taxes or whatever, and I get an interest to live there, and I can do whatever I want to do with it. But if I'm not living there, and somebody comes and start taking care of the land, excluding me paying taxes, then that person can at some point in time, in Jamaica 12 years, in other jurisdiction 10 years, say, listen man, I want the place, because he don't want it, if never did want it, he would have been here. Because, and I hear what you said, Debbie, in terms of what if there is some circumstances that cause you not to be able to treat with the premises. But as an owner of property, you have to ensure that your land doesn't become a nuisance to your neighbors. So even if you have to get a worker man to go down there, go keep the place clean and thing. Because if you have been so attuned with what's happening, at some point in time, you will discover that, hey, you have some people who are squat. And from once you realize that, action in court.
Right. All right. Let me ask you this, because I think that the issue of squatting and capture land became very obvious and evident after the passage of Melissa, right?
Yes.
With now the rebuilding of certain parts of Jamaica, is the government within their right to tell certain persons you cannot be rebuilding in these places because we own the space?
Yes, because one of the and when you look at why squatting proliferated in the way it has, it's really because of poor management and regulation, and improper zoning. Because if it is that the regulatory authorities were actually enforcing, certain laws, then you wouldn't really have some of these unplanned developments. So you really can't build anywhere, because some areas are protected, and if it is that you're going to live in somewhere and at some point in time it's going to cost taxpayers, which is what we usually see when people live in gully banks and elsewhere, and it causes some real harm. So the government can do that, because the government is the ultimate owner of land everywhere and anywhere. And so even if you have your nice house and them say, listen man, Neville, I want to run a highway over there, so they can acquire it and just give money and say, listen, you have expended X amount of money for the land.
So why is not the government paying my property tax if since it's them own it? Why is
listen, we give you somewhere, man. Pay for it.
But if you say it's them own it, then they're supposed to pay property.
So you own it in a sense,
Yeah, but I understand your point.
Yeah, so we give you that feeling
No,
that
I understand.
you are the owner, but hey, it's not absolute. Take care of it, pay your taxes, and do what you need to do.
I think you explained it beautifully. I just think it's wrong.
Facetious.
I think it is wrong. But I think it is wrong, to be fair. You can't say me own the land and a man can just come and say, may I take it?
I don't agree with it either.
Right.
Let me ask you, I'm so sorry, Nick, but I just want to know, what do I do though? I come and I see it happening, what's the first agency that I should be going into?
Just file an action to recover possession. That's important, because if you serve the notice and the man refuse or the woman refuse to leave, problems.
I will end with this. So legally, we are all squatting on government land.
Well, not squatting because we're paying. So
But-
it's not illegal. The squatters who are actually in possession, they are illegally occupying land, but you are legally occupying the land.
That's what I said.
But I don't own
That's,
it.
no, but that's what I just said.
Say
We
you're
are-
really a squatter.
No, that's
But I
what I
don't
said.
own
We
it
are
100%.
legally. Oh, that's what I said. I never said
Yeah.
illegally.
Alright, so legally.
I said we are legally
Alright.
squatting on government land.
Alright. If you want to call me a squatter.
No, I'm not calling you. I'm asking you because of what you said.
Well, because squatting is illegal. So you
But we
can't
don't
say,
own
yeah.
it 100%.
Well, you don't own land 100%.
Got it. All right. We need.
So, here you get it from the perspective of someone in the legal field. Something I have said several times. But I come from the perspective of the colonial structure. Right? And he is trying not to say too much, but the question, I mean, a well-thinking person, which deserves to hold them on. A well-thinking individual having this conversation is going to be asking the questions Neville is asking. Right? Because if you own something, that ownership does not expire. You get it? Clear. Let me start report the live. Clear. Contains just they are reporting the live. Yeah, so if you actually own something, right, it means that you don't have an expiration date on your property. But the fact that you have to pay taxes, and if you stop paying taxes, you are getting penalties on the property. Now, I can't even really discuss the full details here with you. But just to stay in the realm of what is publicly known and what has been publicly said, right? A squatter has more rights than you if challenged in a court. Let that sink in for a second. You who think that you pay for a piece of land, if somebody take over that land or capture the land, and that person decides that them now come off because them depend it for a long period of time, you now have to take that individual to court. You can't get police to take him off. You have to start a claim in court to recover possession. Think about that. Whereas if you have a car, if you have a car and someone steals your car, you can demand it being returned immediately because it is not a matter of anyone owning it but you, right? But when somebody take a land, you can't just get it back so. Again, people have different reasons why they might not occupy the land right away. So, you know, the whole land ownership thing, again, if you are to challenge it in court, you can demand that the government provides their title to the land, their superior ownership to the land, right? And if they can't produce it in open court, then that is going to be a real problem for the system. I am not telling you to go and do this, you know. I am not giving directions to go and do anything. I am saying theoretically, if one is supposed to challenge the government in a true court of law, and you say, well, if the government is going to make a claim, let the government bring forth their title of possession and show that they are the true owner based on lawful process. And then I will concede that it is the government's property. Right? But if you can't show, say you were the lawful owner in the first place, how can you come tell me to come off? Exactly. To pay taxes, remember, taxes are supposed to be for public benefit. So how can you be paying taxes on a piece of land that you got a title for? It don't make no sense. You got a certificate, you see? Many of you are thinking you got a title, but you got a certificate, and a certificate with an expiration date based on performance condition. So it is a commercial contract. It was never a title to begin with. It was just a certificate, a license. Because if you don't perform, then you now become liable to lose the benefits of the thing or lose the benefits of the license. So, I am not telling you to go do anything. I am not telling you to go and do anything. Okay? I'm just having a small little discussion with my reflection. So anyways, that being said, you cannot own land. In the current system, you cannot own land. Right. Hypothetically speaking. So now, we have all the sections codified. So the table of contents, like we discussed earlier, the table of contents is now structurally complete. So the pages and the page numbers and so forth, they should now be accurate. The titles and the pages on the right. So if you are searching through the document for a specific section, you should be able to find it. If you want to make suggestions, again, you go to voiceofjamaica.com, you click on New Constitution, and then you can make suggestions in this box here. If you would like to become a signatory, again, those of you who are still asking about becoming a signatory, you click on signatories in the menu and you can fill out the form here to become a signatory. Once you fill out the form, you will get further instructions by email. Okay? So, I have a few sections that I am going to be adding to the draft, and then we're gonna go through I'm gonna go through it a final time, a final review of the draft, and then we're gonna start getting prepared for stage 2, and that I will disclose sometime next week. All right, but we're gonna add jurisdiction, we're gonna add a traffic code, and we're gonna add the procedure manual for the criminal and civil cases. So that way, we don't have any ambiguity, or we don't have any as you can say, any confusion as it regards what should be done to start a case, to defend a case, and the stages within a case until completion, right? So, progress is still being made. As you can see, it is a rather difficult task to go through 238 pages, but it is getting done, right? Again, for those of you who can, go through the documents, make your suggestions. We're going to make the suggestions public if you submit them, so that way everyone can see the progress that is being made, the progress that is continuously being made. And once we're done, we're going to move on to stage 2, and then Stage 3 is going to be where we actually take some actions, right? Trust provisions is going to be there, but no trust law per se. Going to be provisions on how to handle trusts, but trust law is not going to be any different from corporate law, other than the fact that, you know, for a trust, it is the law of the trust as it currently is. It is not going to be subject to, you know, the statutory rules per se, unless it involves a crime, right? So that is still civil law as it relates to trust matters, right? So that is what we have for today. If you have questions, you can always submit your suggestions using the constitutional draft form, or you can use the contact us form on voiceofjamaica.com, and we will go over your question or your request and so forth. If you would like to chat to me live, you can send me a message here on TikTok, or if you have something you want to send, you can use the website, or you can find me on Telegram at LFB876. I think it's in my Telegram profile. So profile there up here, so you can click on it, or you can find it on my page, on my profile, the Telegram account name. So you can reach out to me there if you so choose, and we will continue again on Monday. Big up on yourself. Lawful always. Have a great weekend.